Hello everyone, today I spent a bunch of time testing Nefer teams, trying to figure out who is the best character to fill the last slot. As we all know by this point, Llama and Columbina are two of Nefer's best team options, but who do we go for the last slot? Do we go for sustain or pure damage? And even then, which one is the best of the options that we do have? In this video, I'm gonna tell you about my results, my experiences, and my recommendations. Feel free to turn on closed captions if you struggle understanding me, and let's get right into it. So the 4 characters I ended up testing were Nahida, Sucrose, Kuki, and Ineffa. I think those are the main 4 that people are considering these days, and they cover different aspects that I want to point out. I will go in depth about each of them individually, but before I do, I actually want to talk about the conclusion first, since I believe it makes more sense to do so. You'll see. So my general conclusion after testing each of them is that honestly, you cannot go wrong with any of them. All 4 have their pros and cons. They're all very strong teams at the end of the day, and the best option for your account specifically will depend on what kinds of builds and weapons you already have on your account and constellations. Because of the way the new artifact sets work, anyone can use pretty much any set, and who wears what will depend on how good the substats and main stats are on your sets, as well as what weapons you have, mainly when it comes to energy recharge. For example, if all you have is Nefer's signature weapon, you might be better off using Nahida since she's the one that buffs Nefer the most. Or alternatively, maybe you have signature weapons on everyone, and maybe a constellation or 2 sprinkled in there. Sucrose might be better since she buffs the whole team. Or maybe you have an insanely well built Ineffa on a 5-star weapon and her personal damage just outperforms both of them. Or maybe you don't have any of them, or they're busy in other teams, and then Kuki is right there for you. I can go on and on and on. That's what I mean by it depends. There are so many niche situations that it's super hard to say which one is actually the best for you. That's why I didn't want to just immediately start yapping about my results, because the results I got were from my own account with my own builds. But I do think that there are still valuable things we can extract from them that can be applied to the general player base. Let's start off with Kuki. You can see the builds used on screen now. What are the pros and cons of Kuki? The pros are that she's the cheapest sustain and she does it well. Even with instructors, even with Fav, even with 2 attack percent main stats, her healing is solid. Her constellations are helpful but not necessary. She can very reliably proc instructors, which gives EM to the whole team and not just Nefer, but that's about all she does. She's cheap, she's reliable, she's honest, but her one con is that she gives the least amount of offensive buffs. She offers no personal damage, and the few extra EM from the Electro, Dendra Resonance, and Spread procs she enables by being Electro are not that big in the grand scheme of things. But with all that being said, the team overall is still very strong, and you will have no trouble clearing anything except maybe Dire Mode in Stygian. Like I said, you can't go wrong with any of them. I think her best use case is either for newer players or for players who don't have access to the other units for whatever reason. Kuki will be more than good enough. Next up, Nahida. These are the builds I used. What are the pros and cons of Nahida? Well, she has many pros. Her buff to Nefer is a massive 250 EM. You can very easily reach this limit because either she or Llama will reach over 1k EM. She generates a lot of Dendro particles, which is helpful for both Nefer and Llama, and even to Columbina to some extent. She gives the highest Lunar Bloom reaction buff from being non-Notcry. She can very reliably proc Fav because of her crit rate passive, and she has a lot of EM weapon options to choose from if you're not using Fav, as well as having some vertical investment options with her C2. But what about the cons? Well, she does force you to use Prototype Ember on someone. It could be either Columbina or herself, again, depends on your account, which is fine, but it is a downside since you literally have no heals or shields unless you have C1 Llama. She also doesn't provide any buffs to Llama or Columbina, which again is fine, but might be worth considering if your supports are cracked. She's also Dendro, which means proccing Instructor is pretty much impossible past the first rotation. That leaves us with 1 artifact slot open. And lastly, she cannot refresh Deepwood in multi-wave content without swapping back into her, but I really don't think that's a big deal. Like, you should be able to cut through multi-wave anyways. So when should you use Nahida? I'd say she's the best buffer to use for Nefer specifically. If you have Nefer's signature, or maybe a constellation or 2, or just a really good build, build, Nahida is very easy, very simple, and very powerful to slot in. I do also think that she's a better generalist option than Sucrose, who I will cover in a second. So if you just want to have a character on Fav and Deepwood and never worry about anything, she's perfect for that. Okay, so what about Sucrose? Well, here are the builds I used. What are the pros and cons of Sucrose? The first pro is that she's also very cheap, with only her C1 and C2 doing anything. You also don't need to level her very high, and her talents can be left alone too. Next, and this one is really big, it's that she gives EM to the whole party. You can expect around 220-ish EM, depending on your weapon and builds, when her skill or burst hits enemies. That's really powerful because that much EM to Nefer is already quite big, but you also give it to Lauma, who will now give stronger quills, and Columbina will also benefit from the raw EM because even though her damage scales off HP, the EM is still counted for in the EM multiplier. And last but not least, she is a catalyst user, so she also has access to many weapon options, but I think Sacrifice is gonna be used by most people most of the time. Now, she does have some significant cons as well, so let's go over them. First, it's that the duration on her buffs is only 8 seconds. That's not bad, Nefer can work around it, but it means that you will have to swap into her more frequently, pay a lot more attention to your rotations, and you will inevitably lose some buffs on some hits. She's also harder to build than Nahida, since she's the only Anemo in the team and she has a high burst cost of 80. You do want to build ER on her in this team, since the burst is the only way of applying off-field Deepwood. On top of that, she also doesn't generate much energy for the team either, since she makes Anemo particles and will probably not be using Fav, meaning your builds across the whole team need to be more precise. And last but not least, it's that she's a strong Anemo VV character and she just has better use cases elsewhere. Nahida you only want to use in Dendro team, and Nefer is a Dendro team. Meanwhile, Sucrose, yes, she can be used with Nefer, but she would offer more value to Lunar Charged, Electrocharged, Vape, Melt, whatever else. But with all that being said, when would you want to use Sucrose? I think she's best used when you have the whole team really well built and well invested. I think she's good for the type of player who likes min-maxing and optimizing rotations and going for speed runs and dire clears. If you're that kind of player, I think you'll end up appreciating her very much. But if you don't want to worry about all that stuff and still want to have a super strong team, go for Nahida instead. And last but not least, Ineffa, here are the builds I used. I will talk about builds more in the conclusion section. So what are her pros and cons? Well, she is a full-fledged sustain, and her shield is strong enough to where you can forego Proto Amber on Columbina if your ER is good enough. She also contributes a lot of versatile damage with her direct Lunar Charge hits, since we already have a lot of Lunar Reaction buffs in the team. She can also give a team-wide EM buff through her passive when you use Burst, which is really good for the same reasons I mentioned with Sucrose. And she's Electro, so she gives a bit of extra EM and a few quicken procs, but that's not too big of a deal. And she also scales really well with strong weapons, so if you have one of those, it can make a big difference. But unfortunately, same can be said about her cons. If you don't have one of the strong weapons, you lose out on a ton of damage and probably a fair amount of the EM share as well. There's also the problem of her builds. Unlike the other options, you can't really change around the artifact set. You want her to be on the Obeyed set and the others to be on Deepwood SMS. The thing is that the Obeyed set is brand new, shares a domain with a set that you will never use in an Nefer team, and it won't be in the strongbox for a whole year. So when it comes to artifacts farming right now, it's very inefficient, since you have to pause farming both Night and SMS until you get a good Obeyed set. And having a actually good set on Ineffa is important because most of her value comes from her own personal damage. And finally, she has the same deal as Sucrose. Yeah, you can use her in a Nefer team, but a Lunar Charge or Overload team would probably be a better use case for her. So when would you want to use Ineffa? Well, she's best used for the type of player who wants extra sustain and safety. Maybe you don't want to worry about dodging and doing dash cancels, but you still want an incredibly strong Nefer team. Additionally, if you're watching this far in the future and you already have a good Obeyed set and a strong weapon, then she's a very good choice and can easily contend with Nahida and Sucrose. And that about covers it. I hope you understood the context and the intricacies when it comes to team building Nefer. And by all means, these aren't the only options you have. Off the top of my head, Zhongli and C6 Yahora come to mind. But I chose the main four because those are the ones I see most talked about. And they generally cover the main aspects of the last slot that I wanted to talk about. And now you can consider everything you've learned when coming up with your own choices. If you liked the video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate all of that. And I'll be continuing to hopefully make more helpful videos like this in the future. Take care. She can very reliably pluck. She can very reliably pluck. She can very holy fuck.